Hey guys, my name is Spencer Kaufman. Thank you for watching the Deception Tips videos. They're all about teaching you how to read people and detect deception so that you will be able to tell if someone is lying to you. Today we are going to talk about a simple fact about liars and that they don't necessarily always want to reinvent the whole story. A lie is not always entirely false. This is a myth that people They seem to believe that when someone lies, it's a fabricated story or it's a fictitious event, that the entire thing is completely fake. This is a huge myth. Usually when people lie, there are a lot of bits of the truth mixed in with that lie for several reasons. Number one, it's easier to remember, it's easier to tell, they don't have to keep track of so much, among other things. But that's what we're talking about today, is that liars, they don't always want to completely fabricate the entire story. Oftentimes, they would prefer to conceal the truth rather than invent something new. So here it is. This is deception tip number 65. Liars prefer to conceal the truth rather than coming up with an entirely new story. So they want to conceal this truth. If there's something that happened, they are more interested in kind of covering it up and leading people in the wrong direction rather than pretending that, okay, it didn't happen, let's say something else happened and go with it from there. Because our brains encode memory in a sporadic and kind of messy way. It's not neat and orderly like a file cabinet. Everything's just thrown in there and then we can remember it or recall it as it started to be stimulated or probed through other events that happen. Therefore, if they did that, if they say, okay, we're going to pretend this didn't happen and instead we're going to invent this new thing and say it happened, memory would still serve up this old information. Therefore, if there was some kind of a spontaneous trigger that happened and they started talking about it, it would be very difficult for them to remember, consciously remember, to tell this lie over what really happened. Therefore, liars would prefer to merge those two together. So something really happened, we're going to change this, this, and this. Okay, now this is how it went down. That way, when the real event gets triggered or when something in their memory triggers that event and they start talking about it, they know that, okay, they're talking about it. Wait a minute, this event is a little bit different because I changed it. They don't need to remember the entire lie. All they need to do is remember the event naturally, spontaneously, because it's in the memory, and then only a few points that are changed or a few details that are different, and then other people will extrapolate from that or assume things. One of the greatest lies is allowing people to tell other lies for you. Now, doing that is a lot of liars, when people are really good at lying or if they are criminals or in interrogation situations, so those of you in law enforcement, this is important, is that a lot of people that you're going to be dealing with, they would prefer to allow you to draw all the conclusions and come up with your own story. Now, of course, you're not going to see it that way, but that's what they are doing. So, for example, you may say, so you did this and then what? Okay, well, maybe they didn't even do that. You just projected that on them, and now that's what they did. And so they could allow you to continue on that story, and you'd have the whole thing wrong. And then later on, you'd say, well, that's what you told me. And they'll say, no, that's what you said I did. And so they're going to allow you to kind of tell that lie for them so they don't even have to tell it. And that's something to be very, very careful of. Never, ever push things on other people. Let them speak and tell you what the story is before you assume anything. You don't need to say insinuating things. And this is a huge debate when it comes to getting witnesses or witness statements from children, because a lot of interrogators, they push that on children. Whereas they would say things like they put words in their mouth. They would say, oh, well, you saw it got smashed, right? And then later on, the child who maybe has never heard that word before is now describing this thing with these smashed and rather than just hit. And things like that, where it sounds a lot more dramatic than it really was due to the interrogator putting those words in someone's mouth. So if you're asking questions, be careful of that. And if you're on the receiving end of the questions, be careful with that as well. But the main thing to remember here is that these stories, people prefer to conceal the truth and let other people extrapolate on it and assume. So do not fall into that trap. Do not let yourself extrapolate on someone else's truth and turn it into a lie. Allow them to say it, because if they have to tell you that lie, then there are a lot more chances for them to slip up, and it's a lot better odds for you to spot the truth. So if this is your first time watching these videos, I'd love to have you subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Feel free to comment with any questions you may have as well. Also, if you'd like some more information, we've got books, podcasts, blog posts, all available on spencerkaufman.com that are dedicated to teaching you exactly what everybody is really saying. Until next time.